Hi everyone, it's Andrea and I'm here with the Creative Design Team's Back to School September project. You'll notice that we have a new addition to our team this week. We have a new guest designer, Janice, with us, and she will be sharing her project on Wednesday. Here's a peek at the layout that I'm going to be showing you how to put together using your Cricut. We're going to go through a lot of design space right here, but this is a $1 SVG that you can purchase over on my Close to My Heart website. But the beauty of it is that you can use it in any die cutting machine, electric die cutting machine that you might have. I'm just going to focus on Cricut today. So here we are over at the design space, and I am uploading that Celebrate image. Now, you might be wondering, why celebrate on a back to school layout, right? But my kids had not been in school for 543 days, and if that is not the means to celebrate, I don't know what would give you cause. So I'm just going to go in and first of all, change the colors. I've ungrouped the image first, and I'm changing each layer into a color that I desire. They're actually our school colors. So I'm doing that just so I can get a feel, because I designed the majority of this layout right here on the Cricut Design Space. I love that we have that possibility to do that. So you'll see me changing color by color, and right now I have just duplicated the solid word celebrate because I have a special plan to make a great big background overlay with that word. So I'm just going to size that down into a size that I feel is appropriate, and you can see the size here on the screen. Unfortunately, when we have these SVG files, we can't share the cutting file. So you'll have to purchase the image and then rely on these sizes that you see going on here. Now, I've just changed everything to the colors, and I'm going to move this layer to the background. There we go. And then we're going to focus on building our overlay. So I'm just going to get some space here on my Cricut Design Space screen, and I am going to change this to white because in my vision, I'm going to make a white overlay on top of white daisy cardstock. I am going to pull in a square right now. I've added this because I want to make an 11.5 by 11.5 inch box. I want to make sure that the overlay that I make is within the boundaries set by my Cricut machine. I hope that makes sense. So you're going to see me go ahead and grab the Celebrate, and I'm going to once again duplicate the Celebrate. I'm going to do that 3 times. I find it's easier to create a row when I'm creating these great big overlays. So I'm going to loosely line these up so that they touch and overlap just a bit. And then I'm going to select all 3 of these images, the Celebrate image here. And I'm going to go up onto the top where you will see a line. And I'm going to align these so that they're aligned at the top, so they're all the same height. And then I'm also going to go back in and weld those together. So now I have Celebrate that I'm going to duplicate. Move this down here, the square, and I'm going to do it one more time. I think I want 4 sets of these words, and that should be enough mathematically to give us a fit within our 11.5 by 11.5 inch boundary. I hope that all makes sense. So I want to line these up. I don't want them, some to the left and some to the right. So I'm just making them touch from top to bottom at this moment. And I am going to go ahead and refine my alignment. So we are going to align horizontally. So now they're all in line from top to bottom. And then I'm going to distribute them vertically so that this way they are touching at an equal space between the top and bottom layers of Celebrate. I hope that makes sense. The last step is to go ahead and weld these together. I am bringing in the square once again just to make sure everything fits, and I do like the sizing of that. So isn't this a fun way to create a really easy background? Now we've got the great big design element of the Celebrate up here, yet we have this whole pretty background. And I'm just going to sit here and maneuver these for a moment to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly. And then I'm going to also bring in some photo mats. You'll now see that I have everything placed exactly where I want it to be. I've created some photo mats for my 4x6 photos, and I have duplicated a few of the design elements that I'm just putting around the layout to see where I might like them to go. And once I am good with the placement of all of these elements, I'm actually going to turn on my Cricut Maker and get these cut out so I can show you exactly how they look. It might be a good idea to cut on the intricate settings, that this way you don't tear your white daisy cardstock. Now that all of our pieces are cut, I'm going to slide that out of the way and we're going to focus on this white daisy cardstock. I also have my all-purpose mat down to keep my work surface clean, and I'm going to use this old stencil from an album retreat and bring in my chipped Sapphire Distress Oxide ink. Just going to make lots of stars in the background here. I'm going to press heavier on some of them, lighter on others, just to give some texture and another layer of surprise element to the base of this page. I'm going to lay down a lot of these stars in the area that I think my big Celebrate title will be. And so you're going to see me putting down some a little bit higher, a little lower, until I get the look that I'm going for. For the next step, I'm bringing in an old close to my heart box, a shipping box, and my night gloss spray. Make sure to shake it really well. I tilt up my box and I give it a good spray. And in fact, I think I've gotten enough coverage there with one spritz that I'm really happy. So I'm going to set aside that background page just to dry for a moment, and we are going to work on all of the Cricut elements. Now, you'll notice that I've already pre-mounted onto the light side of Sapphire cardstock the two photos of my kids. They were not happy to go to school this day, let me tell you. Those are some photos. I also have some of my liquid glue here. I love the green one. I put a little bit down on my mat. I have a piece of one of our sponges, and I'm just going to cut that and get a little tiny piece, and I just gently dab the glue around. Didn't want to have to trace around this element, so I have gone ahead and layered up the word celebrate. Don't forget those inner pieces. I actually almost threw them away and had to go retrieve them from my recycle bin. I was lucky I found them all. So don't make that mistake that I made. We'll set that aside. And now we have the actual overlay. We need to add some adhesive there as well. I am not going to cover every corner and every nook and cranny of this overlay that we made. I'm just going to go around the outside and a little bit on the inside. Isn't it fun that you can take a $1 SVG and design an entire overlay? I am just so thrilled with the way that this turned out. So I'm moving my all-purpose mat up a bit, and I hope that I stay in frame here for you. I'm going to just turn over this overlay and lay it down, and I love the way this turned out. You can still see the overlay. It's subtle. The design elements look like they're popping right now underneath, but they're going to actually become more muted as we layer up here. So here is the picture of my son. You can tell he was such a grumpy little man. And my daughter, she was a little happier to go back to school. I'm just going to place those lightly down on my layout here before I go ahead and put the word celebrate down permanently. So I think I'm going to put Emma's photo over here because I don't want to cover up her field hockey equipment and stuff. And I'm okay with covering up more of Eddie because really, what a picture. I don't know if boys all over the country have quarantine hair, but here in New Jersey, once they started doing this, he's had a few haircuts, but he still really likes to keep his hair messy, and they all seem to be growing it out. I don't like this trend, but just going to go ahead and glue down the word celebrate with full strength adhesive here. I want this really to stay in place, and I love how that pops. The background elements on that white daisy cardstock become more muted with each addition, but I like the way that it goes. I also cut out the words back to school. I typed these in using Design Space and a font by Katy. I believe it was the coffee font. And I am going to just gently go ahead and adhere these in the same manner with the little sponge. They are really, really delicate. And I thought that that would make just a nice element, a page addition here. So I'm going to get those all adhered down. It's such a pretty font. Lots of fun, very whimsical, and I thought it just went really well with this layout. The only problem is that when I cut it, the letter O's didn't cut out on the bottom, but I decided that I kind of liked that funkiness, so I went ahead and utilized the design cut anyway. Now that that title's on, I am celebrating back to school even if my kids are not. So let's go ahead. I'm going to gather up all of the design elements here. Once I've gathered all of these little pieces of embellishments that I cut out of the Cricut, it's time to start placing and adhering down. And in my head, I have a rough idea of where I want to place everything. I am placing it all with the dark side of Sapphire up. Only on my photo mats did I use the light side of Sapphire. I'll continue placing all of these Cricut cuts around, and I just want to grab some foam dots and show you guys that I'm going to foam dot these little starbursts. And I want to also mention that I cut these. See, these are the light sides, and you might be able to see that you see the white cardstock core. So I always cut with the color that I want down on my mat. It makes for a much better Cricut cut. In that case, you have to mirror for the most part so that this way your design is correct when you flip over your cardstock. But it's just a little hint that if you want a really crisp cut without having that white cardstock center show through, flip it over and you'll be really happy with the results. Now these little stars, I'm deciding where they should go, and I think that putting them onto the pictures makes them not quite as bold as they could be if they were on the white, and I kind of like that they're a little bit more subdued. So last but not least, with my embellishments here, I'm going to grab my liquid glass and I am going to go over these little starbursts. And you might be asking, why is she doing that? Well, by going over these starbursts with that liquid glass, it is going to create a shiny enamel look to these elements when it dries. And I do like that it's just another design element that I can add to my pages. It's not so overwhelming. It's there. It's fun, and it's just something that you can do with a few elements. I wouldn't have done it to all of the elements on the page. I might consider adding some more sequins and stuff, but I think that what I have is enough right here. So I'll be back with the finished layout, and I'm going to add some journaling, and we'll see how this all comes together. Let's look up close at the stenciling and the spritzing and all of the details here on the layout we've made today. Before you go, I'd love to have a moment to talk to you about the 31 Days of Christmas Cards event that the girls at the Creative Design Team and I are putting on during the month of October. It begins on October 1st and registration is now open. I will put the link down in our video description. During this event, you'll have access to 31 days of individual card classes taught by each of us. So be sure to look at that link down below to find out more. Next up is Chelsea, and she will have another back to school project for you. If you've not yet done so, please consider becoming one of my subscribers. I'd appreciate it very much. Thanks and have a creative day.